this content is for kids.
It's not for kids.
Isn't that what I said?
No, it's not for kids. If you are 13 years or younger, this is not for you. Do I have to kill somebody in order to actually make that point across?
No, man, you don't have to kill
Wait
no one.
a second.
Oh, no.
When we return to our planet, the High Court may well sentence you to torture.
He likes movies, we like movies. SeptumSin versus the world. SeptumSin versus the world. SeptumSin versus the world. SeptumSin versus the world. I'd buy that for $1.
Hello there, Bad Ben fans. We are back again for month 3 of our year of Bad Ben. Of course, for those of you who are very much interested in Bad Ben, the newest Bad Ben is coming out in May, which is Bad Ben Eulogy. Looks like he's getting back into that habit of trying to do 2 a year, because he usually releases one in Mayish in that time period. Then he releases one around Halloween. So if he's back in the groove of things, we actually might have, because there were, I think, 9 total. Yeah, 9 total films.
Yeah.
So if he keeps doing it the way he's doing it, we'll have the new if we have a new Bad Ben film in October, we'll actually have an entire year of Bad Ben, and we can end it on the Bad Ben Christmas and some of those bonus features that they have.
Yeah. Hopefully it works out that way. I mean, it seems like it's perfectly set up for that. So if it stays on that timeline, we got kitties going on. That should be an extra like or two. All right, get it.
So I'm going to go ahead and I guess I'm going to play this trailer for us to see. Yeah, the problem with breaking glass is that, according to what Dave has said, they are having trouble paying a lot of their people.
Is anyone around?
No, let's just get this over with. Right?
All right, you scared?
Yeah, I'm a little scared, all right?
All right, it's gonna be cool. All right, I'm going in. There you are. I think you're gonna like what you're gonna say.
No way.
Yeah.
All right. What the hell is it?
I'm surprised you agreed to do this, frankly.
I'm doing this because you guys are paying me.
Willing to go.
Of course he is.
All right. Going into the house. I'll see you in the room.
Oh, that's something told me just moved past me. Did you get that?
Stop it.
It's at least 20 degrees cooler in this room. We can all feel it.
What the is that?
Oh man, those dad briefs. Like my favorite thing about his appearances in these. We'll definitely be covering those too. That was one of my favorite scenes in the movie. Well, we'll get there.
Oh yeah. So of course we are back in. Boop, there it goes. And I'm going to get this off because I'll be using it later for another stream. So, of course, I'm here with Mo, who is from... Why is it I can't get you? It's like your channel and Dane's channel. I cannot remember the names of Retro Cult Homes. Okay.
Home video.
Thank you. I got
my own fault, I rebranded after years, so and then I haven't done much with it since. So, one day it'll become normal.
I keep wanting to say Drunken Master Studios.
Yeah, it's think a lot of people are having that problem at the moment, and it's understandable. But yeah, Retro Cult Home Video is what we're going to be doing stuff under going forward, and hopefully I'll have some stuff out there again here soon.
Below. So you should check out the stuff. If you're a Full Moon fan, I mean, really, Mo's channel is filled to the brim with some amazing stuff. Of course, even before that, you had some of the Kaiju Quarantine, which was pretty cool. You had some video game content, which I love your video game content. One of these days, you're going to get back to that for me.
There's plans. There's plans to do it. Yeah, I'll just do them for you. Just send them to you unlisted.
So, and of course, we're going to go ahead and start with Batter Ben, the final chapter. Boy, I wonder what that's a play on. I'm pretty sure that he had no intention of making that the final chapter when he did this.
Right, but it's just you got to throw it out there, especially if you do plan on doing an obscene amount of sequels. It's just hilarious to put it in there because it, obviously calls back to Friday the 13th, and
oh yeah,
as we well know, that was by far not the final chapter. So I'm glad that this isn't. I'm looking forward to checking out the other ones, man, because if it's going in this direction, I think it's going to be a good time.
9 films and a few shorts at this point. We're gonna. My hope is to cover all the shorts around, December, including the Christmas one, and just knock all those out. And like I say, hopefully, if he keeps up his schedule of doing 2 a year, my guess is that he'll have another one out for us in October. And of course, like I say, Bad Ben Eulogy in May. But let's talk about Batter Ben. So essentially, we last left off with Steel Manville Road, which was a prequel of sorts, and this one is the first real sequel to Bad Ben. And we last left Tom Riley presumably dragged to his death by Bad Ben at the end of the movie. But our new movie opens up with some paranormal investigators who are kind of like, this house is going up for auction tomorrow. We're going to go ahead and we're going to find out what's going on. And they find out that Tom Riley is alive. So they decide we're going to do one more ghost hunting show where the night before this auction, we're going to bring him back in and we're going to try and agitate these spirits, unbeknownst to him, so that we can get some spectral footage and make a mint.
Right.
So, was this your first time with Batter Ben, Mo?
It was indeed, man. It won't be my last either. I could easily see this being one of the ones in the series I would revisit the most often. Definitely out of this first trilogy, it's the one I could see thrown on just for laughs, because it is legitimately funny from start to finish. And not in a way that makes it feel hokey. Like, it fits in with the first two. It feels like the logical next step in it. I really like the new characters in this one, whereas last time I think we all kind of were not really super hyped on the couple. They're sort of lame. These guys are awesome. The cameraman and the medium chick are like real life Scooby-Doo characters that he gets teamed up with to go into this situation. And then you got the sleazy producer guy with no tact. I loved that dude too. So they added in some actual fun characters for Tom to play off in this one, and Tom himself is in peak performance. It's perfect, dude. This is honestly easily my favorite one of the three.
Yeah, it is a welcome turn from the last film, which I mean both of us had talked about that as like this is all right, but that was like that's really the summary of last time's episode.
Pretty much. I mean, it's great for lore building or whatever, but not so much in terms of like the entertainment value. This gets back to what the first one was doing, but then adds that layer of comedy on top of it it was present in the first one, and in the second one they dabbled with it a little bit, but in this one they really like kind of boiled the formula for the comedy mixed with this legitimate paranormal like found footage shit into the perfect mixture, and it just works so good, man.
And I was really happy to watch it again. I think I'd only watched it once because it was free. They were all free on Amazon Prime for a while. And now there's like 2 of them. Haunted Highway and Mandela Effect are the only 2 that are free on Prime now. I don't know what that reasoning is, because I think Mandela Effect is the 4th one and Haunted Highway is like the 6th one. But I got to finally look through this, which last Steel Manville Road I watched on Tubi. They're all on Tubi. But I did get my Badder Ben. I got this directly from him. I'm hoping that he'll put up a new one. He had another set when Bad Ben Bad Ben Pandemic came out, the 8th film. But I've got this for the first, I think 7, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Never mind. What am I missing? Okay, Mandela Effect, Wait In. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, 7. There's 7. And then they didn't release one when Bad Ben 9 came out. So, but if he does, I definitely recommend you go to the badben.com website or go to his Facebook page, because he has a good link to his thing, and support and do that.
Right.
But yeah, this one really, I mean, Kim and I were really into the first movie because it had kind of that mix of a little bit of comedy, but definitely was that campy shot on video horror that had a little bit of scare in it, but not a ton. And then we got to this one, we both were really, really happy with this one. I really do think that horror comedy was the best route that they could take.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely sacrifices in the spooky department. There's not as much of that stuff in this one. In fact, I don't think you really see too much of the entities at all. It's mostly just them Scooby-Dooing around the house and being funny, and which is great, but I also got to respect them for realizing, like, okay, we already did 2 semi-serious horror films with this idea, so you try to keep it serious and you end up becoming Paranormal Activity, I think, where it's just like, I don't know, how many times can you do that gimmick and still have it be scary? Even like Amityville had the good sense to stop after 3 movies or whatever, not counting all the ones they've done since, obviously, but there's only so much you can do with that while playing it straight. And I think that them deciding to do comedy full on with the 3rd one is genius, because this would be the one where you started losing interest in the gimmick if they were being serious with it again,
Oh, yeah. And they kind of go strange as things go on, because the next film in line that we'll cover in April will be The Mandela Effect. And that's a wholly different item or animal right there. That one and Haunted Highway I've seen the most part-wise, because, again, they're on Prime. There's no commercials, and we kind of go to sleep to them sometimes.
Just throwing out a guess, is the Mandela Effect where they like try to pretend like none of this stuff ever happened or whatever?
Well, it does this time loop thing. It's really weird, but it's fun, and the ending is hilarious. But we'll definitely get to that. I think they did a good job with that one. It's not this one is probably one of the most ambitious of the Bad Ben films. Not just effects wise, but just cast wise. And though they do invite some more in for certain ones, like the Crescent Moon Clown does, and Haunted Highway has a cast to it. But of course, as always, Nigel Bach is the star of the show, and we definitely felt his absence in Steel Manville Road.
Yes.
But over the plot, we've got our 3 main people. We got Schmitty, I think he's the cameraman. We've got, what are the names of these characters? I got them on IMDb here.
Isn't his real name like Christian or something like that?
Well,
later in the movie, he's like, my name's not even Smitty. It's fucking whatever. And then they just go back to calling him Smitty.
The actor's name is, last name is actually Matthew Schmidt, which is funny that they call him Schmitty in the...
Oh, right on. That's cool. That's like a reference to his real name.
And of course, you got Jackie Baker playing Jackie. You got David J. Greenberg as David, who is the... he's the guy who's producing the show.
Is he like an actual producer of these movies? Is that like him just getting in on it, or?
I don't know. Everybody in this has a little bit of an IMDb page, but this is the only Bad Ben I think that they're involved with.
Ah, bummer, because I kind of liked them.
There are a lot
really
of outside, and there's a lot of outside writers in this one as well, because a lot of these people have had writing credits for this movie, especially Jackie had writing for this movie. So it's definitely, like I say, it's very ambitious. And of course, Jackie is our main horror host. She's like our Grave Encounters main person. So what do you think of these, like I said, the Scooby-Doo group, so to speak?
Oh, they're great, dude. And I mean, it makes total sense that she would have had a lot of writing involvement with it, because for something like this, I think it's almost like The Office. I would imagine a lot of those people had a lot of input into, I don't even know if you call it a script by the end of what you're doing when you're doing something like this, you know? It's like one part writing the scenarios and then equal parts probably improvising a little bit in the moment, you know, which would also make sense. They go by largely their real names, you know, because it's just easier to react and be natural in the situation if they're being called what they're called normally. I wouldn't be surprised if that Schmitty dude was called Schmitty normally, and that was like a joke in the movie about that not being his actual name, you know. She was great, dude. She was equally as funny as Tom. I keep forgetting his real life name, but like she was a perfect sort of foil to him, I guess, because he's like, let's get the fuck out of here, and she's secretly like concocting the situation so that he'll have to stay and they can get this footage and stuff. And it was a really good chemistry that they all had with each other. It felt natural. It didn't feel as like sort of stilted as those randos in the second movie felt, playing off of each other, you know. This was right back to that perfectly natural quality that the first movie had. So they were all great, man. I think my favorite of the three is definitely that girl, because she was just so funny. But that other dude, Schmitty, he had like such a good scared face when stuff was going on. Like, I shouldn't even be here. Why did I take this job? It's such a stupid job, you know. I'm a paranormal investigator. What? I love that shit, man.
Oh yeah, I think that it was. I think they're a great team to play off of. Especially Tom needs somebody somewhat serious to play off of for what he's doing, and that worked out really well at the end of the day.
And I mean, even as funny as they all are, the producer dude, he's basically just there for a little bit of comedic relief every now and again, like comedic relief from the comedy, which I thought was just a fun idea too. Like, everybody's already being funny, but we got this guy in here like just barging the dude with an iPad right after they say that he needs space. It's just so good, man. The comedy is, I don't know what you would call this brand of comedy in here. It's definitely not dry comedy, because there's parts that are definitely set up and timed like regular jokes, but it's just played off very naturally. And I found myself when I was watching it just wishing there was like a TV series where, you know, like in my mind, a good sequel to this would be them going on to somehow do more paranormal investigating and Tom joining them, because he just, towards the end, he looked like he was having fun, actually.
Oh yeah, I mean that was one of the things at the end, one of the jokes that they kind of put out, like him being starting a paranormal investigation agency.
It's like his own Ghostbusters, only Tom just shows up and antagonizes the shit out of the ghosts and yells obscenities at them and stuff. I would definitely call him to clear my house if I had a poltergeist or something.
Oh, he'd be fun to get that taken care of for sure. Yeah. So let's see. Of course, she breaks into the house, which, you know, that happens as you do in these types of things. But
I mean, she's got to get that camera, man, you know, so that they can have the basis for this shit. I love too when they're showing it to the producer guy and he's like, well, we got to cut that. And Schmitty's like, hell no, dude. if I'm gonna break into the house for the material, I want the street cred or whatever. I thought that was fucking great. Like, put it out there.
And you find out, why they're doing this. I mean, apparently a lot of the stuff got out, and this was very popular about what was going on with him. So everybody was very much into it, like,
Right.
So they wanted to get more because some of this camera footage it's recording isn't, what's the word?
It wasn't all up on the cloud.
Yeah.
Like, apparently, I don't know if this is true either, if it's something they conveniently wrote in, but at some point in a previous film, apparently, they had mentioned, I guess, that, if it wasn't up on the cloud, these cameras had their own, like, internal storage, So they basically break in there to get one of the cameras that has the footage of Tom actually surviving the whole thing. And, that's basically it, yeah.
Gas station footage of him going to this place. It looked like he was going in the back to
Yeah.
No.
It did. I think that's what he did go back there and get. The facial recognition on him for when they were like proving it was him, even though it's clearly him. That's just such the totally on brand for me with the stupid humor that I like. It's like, it's clearly him, but let's use this facial recognition technology to prove it.
So they bring him back to the house, and
but let us not forget, it turns out he's been living in a tent in the woods the whole time because he just was so freaked out, and he had PTSD from this whole encounter, so he only comes in for his gas station burritos or whatever, and he's just living hermit style in the woods.
Because you established in the first movie that he had spent everything into the house. And I'm guessing the reason why he didn't just put the house back on auction himself to just get some of his money back was maybe he just too traumatized to do it. And he just didn't think about it.
Right. I was confused about that because did they ever explain why he doesn't still technically own the house when they're trying to do this?
Well, when he bought it on a loan. So
it probably defaulted on the loan when he was living in the woods, and then the bank owns it or whatever. Okay.
So the bank is auctioning it off to pay off its debts so that he's not. So he'll probably not be over in debt by the end of the auction, but at the same time, he won't have any money. So
yeah, bankruptcy. He talks about that when they're interviewing him later.
So yeah, he's definitely in need of money and clothing and a shower, which. So they brought him back to that house, and they were saying, okay, we'll give you a lot of these things. They bought him some clothes from Walmart. It's like, I thought it was funny.
I love that.
He's just like JCPenney, like that's like an up brand. I guess
he just Walmart. Looks at the bag when they hand it to him, and he's like, Walmart. Yeah, I feel that. Walmart clothes are pretty cheap. JCPenney is, I suppose, a step above. I don't know though. They got some pretty cool pop culture shirts at Walmart that you can get for like $7. So,
but got the main Jackie's like MP3 player.
With the ABBA on it. That was also a great touch. I love ABBA personally, but I can understand why they're an easy target to make fun of. He ended up liking it by the end though. He went back in the house to get the fucking iPod. So. We'll get there, I'm sure. But
he does find his iPad while he's in there, which was good, and he uses that later because that's how he does indeed. But they go in and they can't get in because it's locked. But then he opens the door, and of course, it just lets him right in.
Yeah, he seems to have. Well, as we find out, the entity kind of has like a respect for Tom because he didn't just roll over to it in the first movie, but that also kind of feels some of its anger in this one, or so he's told at least at first, because he's kind of able to tell it what to do several different times through the movie where he's just, he's like, stop it when he's trying to go in that door upstairs, and it actually lets him go in the room and stuff,
It also screws with him a heck of a lot in this one too.
That it does.
I mean, most of this part, I'd say, is the slowest part of the movie, where they're just kind of like going around trying to interview him. I mean, the things that I did like about that was part of when they're interviewing him, they have to keep shutting him down for cursing.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, I won't curse. It's like, well, how'd you feel? How the fuck do you think I feel? Like, oh.
Yeah. My favorite was when they finally get him to go through that whole like perfect take of explaining what happened right up to the point where he found out the house was haunted. And then they're like, how'd you feel about that? And he's like, I was fucking pissed. Like,
yeah,
he just ruins the whole take at the end. And then they did some fun stuff with that later when, you know, shit started to really go down. And the producer guy's like, oh, shit. And Tom's like, language. You know, it's just those little touches that are so funny. They pay off later real good. And
he did tweak his language a little bit by, like, saying freaking or stuff like that. But, yeah, he was most definitely being held back. He came across more as the crotchety old man in this than he did in the first movie.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine some time spent living in the woods after battling a demonic entity might do that to you. But, yeah, he was definitely pretty grumpy in this one and also very, like, gun shy at first. One of my favorite parts at the beginning is where he locks the car and that little whip whip goes off and he just fucking bolts. It's so great. So not even the best running scene of Tom in the movie too, and he doesn't look like a fella who would run so gracefully, but he sure does.
And he's still in that whole thing, camping out in the woods or in the park. That holds up all the way through Haunted Highway.
Hell yes.
It goes into a different direction when you hit Pandemic and The Way In. Actually, I think The Way In is the one after that, and then Pandemic. So 7, 8. Is that right? Okay. Yeah. No. The Way In, he's still living in the thing. So yeah, he doesn't move back into the house, so to speak, until Pandemic, until the 8th film. So yeah, he's kind of like out there living in a tent for the most part. I think over at a rest stop.
He doesn't seem like the type of a dude that would thrive in the bush, but when you think about the gas station burritos, I guess it makes sense.
My guess is he makes a little bit of income or passive income here, and then he just basically gets some. He lives near enough to a rest stop or something where you can just grab stuff. I mean,
he pulls out a bill to pay for that burrito or whatever it was, so. Yeah, you're right. I mean, he's not just like using a food stamps card or something. I want to know what he's doing for money out there.
Do we really want to know?
I don't know.
Like, doing tricks for Bad Ben? Who knows?
Hey, rest areas are where a lot of that happens at too, apparently. So,
but They kind of aggravate the spirit as time goes on. They go up in the ashes, and I like how he just goes immediately and writes "fuck you" in the
yeah. And they're like, that lady's like, you shouldn't antagonize the spirits, Tom. That's his thing. Yeah. Where were you did you watch the footage of the first event? That's what he does.
They end up actually they discover that there's 3 entities in the house. You've got one is kind of a combined entity of the original owners, who they still feel like it's their house. Then there's the demon, and then there's Ben, but Ben's not technically in the house; he's in the woods.
And she kind of explains him as a physical creature that has supernatural powers, which I guess tracks with the whole Jersey Devil thing that's established pretty heavily in the second movie. The second movie also kind of gives you that idea that there was Ben and this other entity. And then, when you take that into account and you look at the first movie, clearly there's like several separate entities that are going on. So they managed to keep that pretty much the same in this one. There's the demon, there's Ben, and then there's the previous owners of the house that are trying to warn them away.
So, they do a process of interviews with him. They have him give him a tour of the house, and And of course, after that, he's pretty much ready to bolt because they have a couple of instances where, little things like doors shutting, smells. I think Jackie gets attacked sometime in there.
Dude, I love that part where he comes out of the shower and that guy's like, "So, you feeling better?" And he pats him on the back and he just eats shit on the ground. And then they're like, "Did you shit yourself?" And he's like, "No, that's the smell."
Yes.
It's perfectly understandable that they would assume that he shot himself. And I kept waiting for that moment later in the movie where they smelled it again. And they were like, "Oh, it's the demonic sulfur or whatever." He's like, "No, that time I shat myself." Like that was sadly missing, unless I missed it when I was watching it. But
no, that didn't happen. But he did grumble about them saying that he shit himself later on.
Yeah. Oh, that's one of the best sequences, man. I love it.
But I mean, yeah, it's when they go around the attic that they say, "No, it's sulfur. That's the demon stuff." And I know that he gets ready to leave, and then of course Jackie's like, "No, this demon respects you," and she basically tries to make it sound like the demon's going to follow him, and she makes pretty clear that she's willing to lie to him in order to try and pull more of this stuff out.
Pretty much, yeah. She's setting it up so he thinks he has to stay so that they can get more footage, which I guess makes sense. If you're trying to make a TV show like that or whatever, they do stuff like that, I would imagine. It's like the concocted scenarios you see on those survival shows or whatever, where it's like, yeah, it's happening, but they've manipulated it to make it need to happen, kind of a thing.
And it's kind of like that Rose Red thing where they're like, yeah, we've got some recorded activity, but none of it's more than like, say, these ghost hunter shows have where, you could easily fake it. We need like real activity recorded. And that's where the problem comes. Did you have anything else that you wanted to discuss before we get into where things really, because up until now, it's just kind of meeting the characters, getting to know the ghosts a little bit as they're kind of screwing with them and the demon until they decide to go out and antagonize Ben.
Yeah, I mean, I think we pretty well covered it. Mostly it's just them setting up the idea that they're there to do this show or whatever and bribing Tom into participating and then, convincing him that he's got to stay with them as shit starts heating up. Tom, in rare form, kind of becomes a bit heroic, I think, at that part where they're actually out, like, antagonizing Ben in the woods or whatever, which, isn't the first instance of that in this film. I think he becomes a much better character over the course of this one. I mean, he's generally enjoyable to watch in the first movie, but he's pretty unlikable. In this one, they kind of redeem the character a bit and make you legitimately like him, which I thought was a good touch.
He's sort of like a likable, curmudgeon-y old man who's not necessarily a bad guy, but somebody who likes to grumble a lot and complain about things.
Yeah, exactly. And he plays it to the hilt, man. I mean, he's so good at doing it.
But he ends up, I remember that I still was like, why are y'all doing this? That's stupid. Like, they take the ashes from the mother. I don't know how they got that. And and some holy water and combined it out there to antagonize Ben, and then took the cross from Ben's grave and stabbed it in there, which you can hear Ben doing that little thing that they have him doing. And then he gets really mad. He starts roaring.
They're committing some serious fucking, defilement of the whole sanctity of this place. I mean, it's almost like a Paranormal Activity meets Cannibal Holocaust type situation where they totally kind of deserve what they get after a certain point, and it's all in the name of just getting footage, And
this is our first time actually seeing Ben, and we'll talk more about that as we get to special effects. But we actually do get to see a real Ben, and played by a real actor, Matthew Klimek, playing Ben. And as you said, Tom comes in and saves the day. He actually distracts Ben with his toy and runs away.
Well, the fleeing like a coward and then coming back is kind of his thing in this movie, as they establish later. Such a good scene, man. He just comes out there with that little twinkle toy thing, and he's like, "This is what you want," you know. I don't know. Go ahead.
I gotta give it to them. They're not very great people. The TV show people, they're just like, well, what can we salvage from this? If we erase this much, that'll get us sent to the police. We can still salvage an episode. It's like, okay, wait. And she's like, sadly, Tom Riley has been guessing never to return again. He knocks on the door.
Yeah, dude. Oh, that was such a fucking cool, because I'm pretty sure they assumed he got like killed or just ran away or whatever. And she's like, see, problem solved, you know? And then he shows up all fucked up. I don't know if I would say that they're bad people. Because they don't really do anything too terrible that you couldn't excuse by them just being really caught up and trying to get footage for this show. I mean, they don't go to quite like, it's not like they dug up his mom or something. The ashes is pretty bad, but I mean, if you know, it could have been way heinous if they wanted to go that route with it. But they're just kind of assholes, I guess, is they're super tunnel vision, like hyper focused on getting this footage, and it just leads them to make some unsavory decisions, which, you know, when you compare it to how Tom was even treating the ghosts, it really does illustrate that maybe he wasn't so bad, just you know, swearing at them and you know, challenging them or whatever. These guys are outright, you know, defiling graves and shit.
It's weird with Tom Riley, and I have noticed I have an Inside Movies Galore banner up on Rsing for a while. Well, a shout out to Inside Movies Galore.
Yeah, a little free press for you guys over there.
But as far as that whole scene at the end, when he comes back, of course he gets another shower and has to wear like this rinky-dink outfit that he has.
Dude, it's the same outfit he was wearing when he got his ass kicked in bed in the first one. So it's those old, like, ill-fitting fucking boxer briefs that dads wear when they get to that age, and an ill-fitting white t-shirt. And it's so hilarious when you think, because simultaneously as he's getting back from his shower, they start hearing shit and they go down to the basement to check it out. And they get caught up in Ben's room, you know. And so he comes and he's like, "Oh God, they ditched me again," you know. And he starts sprinting through the house in his dad briefs. I was dying, dude. I think I like woke my kid up because I was laughing so hard at that.
And that's when we get the scene where he basically finds his iPad and he realizes the cameras are still up. And he's like, "Ooh, score!"
Yeah, and he starts just fucking going on the best ever old curmudgeon like grumbling montage while he's going around disabling all the cameras.
Oh yeah, it is hilarious. Watch it just like as he goes through.
I keep forgetting that Latin phrase that they say. That means basically, yeah, there you go. That was one of the funniest ones because they kept calling back to it to the first one, you know. I knew as soon as they asked about it that it was going to be good stuff, because it just makes you think of that whole like, yeah, I know what that means. Do you know what "fuck you" means, or whatever he said in the first movie? Like, just the best line still in the whole series so far. But yeah, that grumbling montage was priceless.
But of course, he realizes there's a camera left and it's in the basement, and so he goes down and he does find all of the camera crew there.
I felt like that was their little nod to the Blair Witch, because you remember that part in Blair Witch where they come down at the end and the dude's just standing in the corner of that basement, like, and they're just laying on the ground, kind of recreating, like, you'd see photos like that a lot back in the day for like bands or sitcoms or things like that, where they're all laying in the circle on the floor or in like a football field or whatever. That's what it reminded me of. It was simultaneously sort of making fun of Blair Witch and those images that you see a lot, you know. I think I was just watching an episode of Scrubs where they recreated that same sort of thing where they're all laying together in like a flower shape on the ground, you know.
He almost does like a creeper touch on the girl, waking
At least
her.
she could let him do at this point.
Yeah, true. And I can't remember, when did the demon break the toy? It's been.
I think that was during his sprinting scene through the house. Yeah.
And
because it gets flung across as he's running, and he's like, "What the fuck?"
But I remember them saying this, and he's like, "Okay, we're doing it my way. What's your way? We fight." And he says it a couple of times, like, you know. I mean, he comes up, he shows up in the most ridiculous outfit. I had to screen cap, and show it off to the group what he was doing, where he's just like, he's got this walking cane, and he's got this cross like thing over him.
Dude, it's one of those fucking like plastic cutting boards with a cross taped onto it, and it's hung with like twine around his neck like a little breastplate / cross thing, and he's doing such the sweet cane fu type like warm-ups with that cane. I could not stop laughing for like easily the entire second half of this movie, dude. The first half gives you a lot of chuckles, but it was out loud like laughing, vicious fucking fits of gut busting that were going on during parts of this, and that was not what we got in the first two for sure.
I mean, the movie picks up speed once they decide to do that antagonizing Ben. All the slow parts of the film is no more. It just goes it goes fast after that.
It's a montage of awesome fucked up, like shot on handy cam view, like Scooby-Doo insanity,
But he has that thing where he's fighting the thing, and of course it pulls down the attic door, knocks him in the head, and
wastes him.
Slapstick.
It's just, I mean, if that's a hint at the direction this series is going, I'm about it. It was just so silly. The bike helmet they chose for him too. It's one of those dorky bike helmets you see people in like the spandex suits wearing. It's not even like a cool bike helmet. It was just so perfect, man. And it hanging upon his frame with his ill-fitting clothes. I love this dude. I think he's a treasure. You said this is the dude too that I think we talked about it in the previous ones. Like Tom is the dude that makes these movies, right?
Yes, Nigel Bach. Yep.
I would just so love to meet him one day. He seems like he's probably a legitimately fun dude in real life. I mean, I think you kind of have to be to play a character like that and have it not come across as a little too real, even though it's perfectly legitimate and you buy him as the character. I would imagine in real life he's a super fun dude.
But when Ben finally confronts, the demon ends up like possessing Jackie, and she's chasing the other two camera members all over the house. And it's kind of funny just watching this like small woman chasing these two grown men around the house. Just
it was so great, dude. And the way they edit it makes it actually kind of scary for a minute when they keep turning corners and she's around the corner every time.
And I'm sure Kim would have liked to have been here for this originally, because I think this is probably her favorite of the Bad Ben films. And her favorite line, also my favorite line in this, comes up later, which is, I wanted to make sure I got it verbatim because I always get it wrong. He's like, after he gets there, he opens the door because the demon had shut him in, but now, he's able to leave and come back. He's like, "Hey, Ben, there's someone in here you want to meet. This is the bitch that broke your toy."
Yeah, I love that, dude.
And that line could never fails to crack me up.
I love it. And he points with the cane and like 6 Ben on her. It's so great, dude. It's almost like they're working together for a minute,
That demon gets the heck out of there. It's just like, oh shit.
See, that's how they should have done it, was like them, like this whole crew of people going on more of these Scooby-Doo adventures with different demons, and Ben just tagging along because he decides that he likes them now or something. I think that would have been a recipe for hilarity. But yeah, my only gripe during that scene was that when he comes in all ready for battle with like his cutting board and his helmet and his cane, and then as soon as shit kicks off, he takes off. Granted, he does come back with Ben, but I just really wish that he'd started whipping her ass with that cane. I think that would have been so funny, dude.
It looked like he was legitimately running away when things started to catch us. Like, oh shit, bye.
Yeah, I'm out.
And of course, then everything seems to be over. But Ben has moved back into the house, and they have a scene reminiscent of the first film. And you think, oh, they're gonna just have him die again. But instead, Ben rips off all his clothes. He treats Ben like a pet dog that's done bad. It's like, no, you get out of here. It's like,
that's what I'm saying, dude. It set it up perfect for that recurring Scooby-Doo team thing. But yeah, when he comes out with his clothes ripped off, I was already dying. And then when he turns around and there's that big long censored thing over his fucking dong, oh man. He just casually walks away and he goes out there and he's like, you guys got any sweatpants? So you know that fucking they all saw him naked.
So I don't think that's
heavily implied.
I don't think it represents as much as it really is. Maybe. I
like to think it does. I mean, this dude was pretty. He's a coward, but at the same time, he's kind of fearless. You know,
made it like it would have stretched all the way to the floor.
Yeah, I fully believe he's got some heavy artillery hanging down there. I don't know how he was hiding it in those briefs. Maybe he had it wrapped around his waist or something. But
did you sit around for the stingers at the end?
Oh, I didn't know that there was stuff. Or are you talking about where they're shooting the commercial, or is there after?
He shoots the commercial, but also goes into a thing where it goes into his inbox. And it's got some funny stuff if you look at if you capture it or if you press pause at the very end where you can see the inbox of the email. It's really at the dead end of the credits. And part of the scene is it's got this couple basically that is emailing him for assistance. And it's like, yeah, this shadow, and it has this shadowy figure moving around in the background as they're talking. And it's like, yeah, we need help today. And then it shows him moving it to the trash pile. All the little
doesn't work with my schedule.
All the little email things, of course, it's got his application for loans. Thank you for the laugh. We needed one as the subject title. Or
that's great. I'm gonna have to go back and give those a look. No, I didn't. I must have just been spacing out because I knew the movie was wrapping up, and so I probably started doing something.
It had a thing for from the Democratic Party, don't believe all the bullshit this person below says, and then the email below is from the Republican Party, don't believe all the bullshit that the person above says.
Oh yeah, dude, there was a pretty funny Trump joke in here that I think people on either side of the fence could appreciate, where that girl's explaining, I forget what exactly she's explaining to him, but she's using all these really short descriptive sort of dramatic phrases or whatever, and he tells her stop speaking like Donald Trump tweets or whatever. That was such a good fucking line because it's not really taking a position either way. And I think any of those people that are fans of Trump could probably agree that he tweets weird. So, it was just a solid joke, and then that whole thing with the email sounds like it kind of jumps on that. I don't know that if they get political later, I can't say, but it seems
heavily.
Like they take a pretty even stance on just making fun of it in general from the sounds of it. So,
and the humor is very tongue in cheek, and it continues along those lines. I still feel like this one was the best of them. Like you had said, I mean, if they didn't do right there, I would have been fine with it. Though I admit, having the final chapter written in there, you got to have more films after that.
It is sort of an obligation. You're almost challenging yourself to, not continue it. So you kind of have to. I think that as a trilogy, I could wholeheartedly recommend this to anybody, even if you're not into these types of movies as a rule. I don't typically watch found footage stuff regularly, as you guys know, and I'm generally not a fan of paranormal stuff, as you guys also know.
Oh, yeah.
But there's just something about these, man. There really is.
It is, and it continues to have. The next couple of movies are going to be fun. We'll talk a little bit about that. But first, I guess we'll go to the special effects. And there's a couple. They had some CG effects. You had some costumes. And, of course, our typical shadows moving, the stuff that we've seen in the other two films. What did you think of the special effects in this?
Oh, they were good. I don't think that. I mean, I guess I suppose they topped the stuff that was done in the previous movies in certain ways, but not to a dramatic enough extent that you're going to be like, whoa, this was like a special effects extravaganza. It feels very consistent with what they've established. And we could say the same about production. Obviously, this is the third movie we've seen shot in the same house. So that's, it's all very, very consistent. And that by this point in it, you can tell that they've got like all these little effects and editing tricks that they've been using to make this stuff sort of believable. Down pat, I mean, it's they in addition to the dialogue and the humor and everything else and the pacing of the movie, the effects they've figured them out at this point, so that it happens very seamlessly. It's not overly spectacular because you don't want that in a movie like this. You want it to be kind of these quick little things that are believable. And I think that this surpassed the second one because that did have a couple of moments where stuff was kind of hokey, like with the little corpse paint kid or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
This one didn't have any of those moments. It was back to the same sort of quality of the first one, and being that you could buy all of it. It was executed quickly. It was edited real good. So that
he's really good
on any of it too much.
He's really good at editing things. I mean, even in the first movie when he was talking to the toy and he would edit it so it sounded like he was asking it a question and it would move as he would do it. So he's shown definitely editing skill. To me, the two things that stood out in this film was the original confrontation with Ben. You had that CG version of him, but then you had the real version with the demon mask, which was pretty creepy. And then you had to kind of catch it, is where you see the kind of how Jackie's face distorts demonically right before he sicks Ben on her, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I honestly would not have noticed it if I hadn't backed it up to watch, his Kane Fu again and watch him run away like a coward as soon as shit got crazy. But yeah, they do a cool effect with that. At one point, what entity is that we see upstairs when they round that corner and there's like that Mothman looking thing? Is that also supposed to be Ben?
I think it could have been the demon. There's a couple other things. There's three main entities in the house that they do, but I swear there's more of them that come through. And when you get to the way in, they give a little bit more background as to why it's not just the three. There are more entities in the house than that.
Right.
I mean, you get stuff like clown ghosts, creepy dolls, dancing demons, stuff like that all throughout as the series goes.
You know what I'm talking about, though, right? There's that one scene where they come around the corner and they see like basically the Mothman. It's exactly the descriptions that you would get of the Mothman, which I thought was cool because even if it was supposed to be one of the other entities, it's clearly supposed to be some type of nod to the Mothman. They made it look exactly how people described those sightings. So, and it's about the Jersey Devil already. Mm-hmm. So to add in like another even slight nod to a cryptid, I thought was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, and it considering the lore, and I don't know if he had been thinking about what adding to the lore like he did later on at that point, but considering the lore, it's very possible that the Mothman could have been in the house at the time.
Fuck yeah, that's great.
So it's very possible. I mean, there are things like in later movies, one scene I can think of, and we'll talk about it more when we get to Haunted Highway, is where you've got like these sets of shoes on the stairs. He looks away, and then the sets of shoes get closer up the stairs.
Nice.
And I think he even does effect where you actually see the shoes moving at a certain point, like moving up the stairs, which is really something about that. I think it just inherently creeps us out where we see something still and they just suddenly just charges forward to us real quick.
Right. Yeah. There's a good episode of the X-Files that I can't remember the title to at the moment. There's like a scene where there's these creatures that very much all you see of them is like this shadow and these glowing eyes, and they like charge at the screen out of nowhere. You see them one sec, you maybe like blink, and then they're all of a sudden coming at you. And I think it sort of engages that animal instinct we have, the fight or flight thing.
And they did that in the Haunted Hill remake, where they actually show the reporter goes downstairs and she sees them operating on a guy through the camera. Then they all look at her, and then she turns around. She sees this guy looks like he's in a straitjacket down the hall. He turns and suddenly runs straight towards the camera.
That does sound familiar. It's been a while since I've seen that one.
Such a good film, and we need to cover that. I think
it's one of the better remakes from what I remember, dude. I saw that in the theater, actually, and it's a good one.
I don't know if we have covered that one.
I don't think so. I feel like you guys might have covered the first one, though.
I need to actually make sure that I've got, because I've been trying to keep track of every film that we've covered on the channel, though Dave has not gotten back to me by looking at the list I gave him to see if I needed to add or subtract.
I made like a playlist at one point of all the Inside Movies Galore episodes, but it's hard because there was so long where like we were doing all the pre-shows on the other channel, and it's a complicated list to put together. So cheers to you if you've been able to do it even somewhat accurately.
Between that and the Delusions of Grandeur, I think I've got a fairly comprehensive list of what we've covered.
It's a good idea because you don't want, I mean, it's 5 years of him doing it or however long it's been. That's a lot of episodes, and it's entirely possible you end up forgetting that you've done something and covering it again. You know, I could see that happening where we're all halfway through it and we're like, oh shit, we did, you guys did do this like 3 years ago or something.
There we go. I did not add the Gamers or Naya's Short Walk On Girl, which were the last two we did.
My only gripe in terms of any type of special effects or editing, because in a lot of ways, editing almost is a special effect. It's just done in post, and a lot of special effects are done then too.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like it's also like one of those tools in the paint kit that you use to make a movie look the way that it does. And the only gripe I have in the entire movie is there's a part where I forget if it's when he's running around or if it's later on where he's like, get the hell out or whatever. And the door opens and then it closes. And there's a weird, brief, like split second close up of the door handle as it locks, which is clearly not coming from any of these found footage cameras we've been seeing the movie through the entire time.
Oh, yeah, true. It kind of takes you out of the moment.
Yeah, it's jarring. It's like, whoa, what the fuck? Why was there like a regular movie shot right there?
I didn't catch that. So that's good. I'm glad that you caught it. Definitely. I have to look back at that again. I will be watching this again, definitely. Maybe not in the near future, but I will be watching it again out of...
Dude, when you do pay attention to that, it feels like it's almost intentionally done. Did they do it as like a little chuckle moment? Because that's what it got from me. I was like, what the fuck? This was, for a brief second, this wasn't a found footage movie. They did like a regular cinematic establishing shot of the door as it locked, which is... any other thing in the movie they would have established through a sound effect.
I mean, it's obviously a joke moment just because it's already proven earlier that the demon can lock all the... I mean, basically, it doesn't have to lock the doors to close them off to him.
Right.
So it's just...
And make the windows unbreakable. I love how Tom's trying to break the windows. And he's like, what is this, the fucking White House? Is this bulletproof glass?
So, music-wise... there's not really much to write home about music. They had a pretty cool thing at the very end, like with the credits, but
I mean, the ABBA reference is fun. I think it's, a good... I think that they do it too to kind of illustrate that ABBA is easy to make fun of, but if you listen to a lot of it, it's some of the most solid pop / dance disco music that's ever been made. Those Swedes or whatever they are really knew how to craft a toe tapping rhythm, I'll tell you what. And it's just the whole thing with the iPod was so brilliant. Like by the end he actually likes ABBA enough to risk going back in the house to get the fucking iPod, and then he gets snatched up by Ben. It's just so great, dude. I mean, there really are, though. I don't know that I've ever been able to actually say this, but I think that if ever there was a good case for movies that don't need music, it's these.
No.
It wouldn't add anything to it. It would take you out of the whole vibe of the movie if there was music or a score going on through the whole thing. And
there's not much, just like little flourishes here and there. That's about it.
Yeah, some audio cues or something to build the tension or whatever, some musical cues, I mean, but If it was every scene had like a score over it, it would feel gross. I think it would have you sort of marooned in this world between believing the found footage shit and looking at it as a movie. And I think honestly, as comical as it's gotten, I still buy these as found footage. I mean, obviously we know it's a movie, but using some suspension of disbelief, I could still even buy this one as a real scenario that took place, you know.
So I guess we're at the end of.
He should have fought the demons with ABBA. That would have been a funny way to include music in the thing, you know. It's like, I'm not gonna let these demons get to me, and he just starts blasting Dancing Queen and fucking boogieing through the house with that cane.
It's too bad about music rights and the power. I mean, and the cost that it probably would have been to do it. But
right.
I mean, the most we ever see something like that is in the Christmas one where he sings Jingle Bells. Not Jingle Bells. It was like he sings like some sort of Christmas carol, like really loudly and badly.
Can't wait.
The demons.
So at least we were on the same page with battling the demons with music. So.
I think it would have been cool. I think that I think the Bad Ben itself is, it could have had some improvements in the movie, but I think this movie, in my opinion, was the best that we've had to this point, and probably the best of the series. I'm not saying that it's totally downhill from here on out, but I swear it's hard to top this one.
It's pretty badass, and I can understand that even without having seen them. I mean, it's definitely good to know that my feelings about it are somewhat validated, because instantly, as soon as I was done watching it, I was like, you know what? The other ones I could see revisiting as part of a marathon. This one I could see just putting on just to watch, you know, because it's fucking funny. And I think that it would be hard to keep doing these. I mean, like I said, this kind of distilled it down to the perfect formula of like seriousness and humor with the good dialogue and the good effects and the properly, legitimately done shot on video stuff. That's one thing that I imagine, you know, since we're sort of probably done with special effects and moving into overall production, it would be a good thing to talk about, is just the way they shot the movie, in that we don't really get the classic Bad Ben security cam shit until like that sort of last half of the movie, if I remember right. Like most of it's shot like a proper on location paranormal documentary type show, which is not something that was necessarily going on in the previous films. We saw some cell phone footage, but largely the story was told through the security cams in the previous movies. And this almost takes it back to the root formula of these type of films and shoots it with a shoulder mounted like camera for most of it. And then especially when he finds them in the basement. I mean, it's so clearly a Blair Witch sort of spoof that it's fun, but it's also, that's one thing I will give these guys, is they managed to kind of spoof on this stuff, but without losing the legitimacy of all of it, because of the way everything's shot and the whole concept behind it. You buy it as found footage, you know?
And they even had that scene where they were kind of, you can tell they were calling back to that, where she's like, I'm so scared. Yeah, that sort of thing. Like, everybody, they're pulling back to that. Still, it doesn't top my favorite parody of that, which was the Dead Camper Lake trailer, where it's got the demon they're hunting.
I don't think I've seen that.
Oh, it's hilarious. The Dead Camper Lake, it's about the same guys who made The Gamers. And
I haven't seen those. Yeah, I think that's the only thing from them other than that third Gamers movie that I haven't seen.
Yeah, it's the two Demon Hunters movies, and it's got basically where the demon is like talking to the camera, Blair Witch style, and it's got like, there he is, kick a motherfucker's ass.
So they flip the script, and it's the demon doing the "I'm so scared" thing.
Yes, it's a great trailer.
And see, that's something though that's like, you know, very obviously a Blair Witch. I mean, this is obviously a Blair Witch thing if you're familiar with enough with Blair Witch to spot it as it's happening or whatever. They don't really go over the top with the spoofing, and I think that's what makes their formula for it so awesome, I think, for these is because they're clearly spoofing the shit from the first movie a little bit.
Oh,
you know?
yeah. I mean,
But they're doing it in a serious way. Like, there is humor to it, but they're not sitting there doing like a scary movie thing where it's just directly the gag from the movie with poop and fart humor thrown over it or whatever. It's quality spoofage, you know.
Oh, it's definitely a horror comedy with the actual, because a good horror comedy has a bit of horror and comedy combined. And I think that's, a lot of people think of horror comedy like, oh yeah, like scary movies. Like, no, I would say scary movies more of just a straight comedy.
Yeah, it's a spoof, you know, whereas like to me a horror comedy is spoofing stuff, but it in and of itself isn't just pure spoofing. It's a legitimate horror movie that happens to spoof some stuff along the way or have some jokes. Tucker and Dale versus Evil is a good example of one that leans heavier into the spoofing and less into just referential humor. I think this is an example of something that's more on the referential humor side of it, bordering on spoofing, but not quite spoofing it in that wink, wink, like, see what we did there kind of a way of doing it, you know, which is a little bit, you know, I hate to say more sophisticated way of doing it, but it is just true. And it's the type of thing that if you're not really thinking about it in that context, you could miss. I could totally see people watching this and not picking up on the Blair Witch thing. But it's there, you know, it's like that scene is definitely them doing that. And I like how it was kind of them. I don't know how they continue shooting these in the future, if they go back to the security cam thing. But it kind of, you know, they did it for a bit in this movie. And then he has that whole montage where he disables them. And then we see him pick up the camera and start shooting with them again. So it was almost like symbolic that this movie was definitely saying goodbye to that gimmick, you know, and going back more to a stripped down DIY shot on, you know, handheld sort of found footage horror film. And I thought that that was cool.
Well, if you're missing that, you won't have to worry too much. Because it goes back on that hard. But with different items thrown in. So any other thoughts before we hit some final features? Favorite scene?
Not too much that I can think about, man. I think we pretty well covered it. I mean, it's everything that you would have wanted them to do technically, like as far as the way the movie was done after seeing the first two. In terms of the cast and everything, they nailed it. In terms of the performances and the whole humor and tone of the movie, it's a good mixture of everything we've seen up to this point with some new layers thrown on top of it. I mean, of the three here, this and the first one are obviously the strongest ones, but you know, this it's great, man. I mean, and picking favorites it's a tall order because there's so many good scenes in this movie, you know.
Oh, mine's easy. It's that line where you're saying that basically, here's the bitch that broke your toy. That just, I don't know, that line cracks me up every time.
Yeah, it's great.
Actually, that's my favorite scene in all the Bad Bens. Just favorite scene for the entire series so far.
You know, I'm inclined to agree, especially the build up to it where he's in the background just doing his warm-ups with the cane, and then when shit kicks off, like he flees and the whole way they edited the girl and everything, and then he comes back and six Ben on the demon. Just so good, man. I think my favorite next to that would be when he's sprinting through the house in those dad briefs. But in terms of like dialogue sections, I think probably the scene where he gets that full good take of his explanation and then fucks it up at the end when they ask him, well, how'd you feel when you found out that there was, you know, murders in the house? And he's like, fucking pissed, and just ruins the whole thing. Or especially like when they first try to get him to explain it, and he's like, so what happened? You want to give us a explanation of what happened to you here? And he's like, yeah, I lost all my fucking money. And they're like, no, we were talking more about what you experienced. And he's like, bankruptcy. That's what I experienced. Just so classic.
Oh, he clearly holds a grudge. The demon holds a grudge against him, but he holds a grudge against the demon too. So
yeah, it's mutual hatred, and maybe a little love by the end of this. I don't know.
Well, hopefully this film is kind of re-energized you. I know we had kind of a lower energy, less less what do they call it? Motivation when it came to Steel Manville Road. But I'm hoping that this is a good energizing one.
Oh, for sure. I'm hyped on these, dude. And I mean, this kind of almost does make up for the second one enough that I almost like it a little more, knowing that this is what comes afterwards,
And I think having all these others with it, having that one as a lore builder is useful. And it's more of just like, this tells me the story. All right, I've seen it once or twice. I'm good. But then there's some of these other ones like this one where, and I can tell you some of the later ones are also really rewatchable. It's just something about this one just takes it.
They perfected it.
Yeah. So
hey, hold on one sec, dude. I gotta go see who's at my door right here. I'll be right back.
Not a problem. I'll tell people about the next movie while we're talking here. So the next film that we're going to be covering here is Bad Ben, the Mandela Effect. This is going to be the last of the Bad Ben films that kind of pulls back from the original well and takes us back in time to, to the first film. As later films tend to try and build more on gimmicks, this one really does go back to basics. It does play into some of the horror comedy elements, some of the more serious horror elements, and in truth, works well. Now, if you want to watch Badder Ben, it is still available on Tubi. So you can watch it with commercials. If you want to pay, Amazon Prime does still offer it for pay. And I think it's on, YouTube and a couple of these other places as well. As far as the Mandela Effect, if you want to also watch before coming to this, which we'll be doing that at the end of April, it's actually on Tubi. But if you have a Prime account, it actually is still one of the two films, only two, of the Bad Ben films that are right now, as of this podcast, available to be viewed. So with that being said, I hope we
sorry about that, bud.
Not a problem. People come to the door.
Well, she was like, the door I kept seeing it like open and then not, because I have like a little latch so the cats can't push it open. And it kept opening, and someone was trying to get at the thing, like, but being quiet about it. And she was trying to ask me something about dinner. But.
No problem. So next up, as I said, Mandela Effect. I hope we're all looking forward to it. And of course, if you can, check out our channel here at SeptumSin versus the World, but also check out Mo's channel. I know he's got a lot of cool content on there, and with luck, a bit of cool content on the way. So,
oh yeah.
I know the content when it gets up there is quality. It's what pulled me there from the beginning. Shoot, that's part of what connected us in the first place is, Rebel Gaming Club did that. But then I got to the channel, and that was really good. So,
yeah, we're going to have more up over there. Right now, I'm trying to help Clint and Don get the whole Amityville horror podcast off the ground, which we're doing a pretty good job of. We've covered some cool stuff. Just recently did a Catherine Mary Stewart interview that was fucking phenomenal. Such a fun lady. I can't wait for people to tune into that. It's just, yeah, man, childhood dreams realized right there. But we got some fun stuff in store in the future. It does look like we're going to be covering the Toxic Avenger as our next, main episode. So that'll be going on. And then Wednesday, we should have our Friday the 13th fan film discussion coming out as well, which I actually need a favor from you where that's concerned.
Sure. We'll be able to catch that off when we get off the air. I'll be glad to work with you there. And and of course, don't forget that you have your Ghibli discussion and my little Rosie.
We do. Grave of the Fireflies. It's going to be not as cute as that cat.
But yeah,
that cat will fill you with infinitely more joy than that movie will. But we'll get her done.
Yeah, I don't know when. I'm guessing if we do it around this time on the next week, it should be fine. But I think some of them from the Amityville are on that discussion too. So
yeah, indeed,
you'll be. That's going to be Oscar night, so it's going to be interesting. So
very, very cool. We also got the giveaway going on over there in the Amityville horror group on Facebook for a Friday the 13th box set from Scream Factory. So if you guys want to come over and check out the podcast and, you know, one of our future episodes here in the next week or so, there's going to be instructions on how to enter for that giveaway, but you got to listen to get the instructions there.
Well, hopefully, as I said to them, I was like, hopefully you guys pacing your Friday 13th discussions better than we did ours. You were in on that when we did that on this channel. Or went through.
It had its moments,
and we did a fan film discussion too, as a matter of fact. But we covered.
And I'll give that series credit for that. We're just gonna do them in one go. You know, we're just gonna all watch a bunch of fan films and do it as one discussion, and then when we eventually do a proper franchise discussion for Friday the 13th, it's just gonna be one discussion. It might be 3 hours, but it's gonna cover all of the movies. You know,
maybe that would have been the better way.
That's probably how we should have shot for it. We went for you know, completionism. But things like that, I think it's just better to everyone sit down and marathon the series and then, you know, talk about them that way. Because in essence, like something like this is going to be more creative and different in each installment than something like Friday the 13th. You know, with something like that, you're just going to basically be talking about the same movie like 9 fucking times plus whatever other times you want to do it, you know. And that's where you run into the trouble with that. And, you know, bless his soul, Freddy's the same thing. Once you get past the second one, you're talking about essentially the same movie in varying levels of quality over and over again.
Yeah, up until you get to the end of it, and then it goes into not after Freddy's dead. If you go into like, you know, New Nightmare.
New Nightmare. Yeah, then it hits a peak again that I'm definitely a fan of.
All right. Well, thank you for watching. Hit that subscribe. Of course, share. And then when you watch the Amityville one, then come back and watch ours, and you compare, and you can tell them how much better they did than this other one. So
we might have to tag you in on that just so that we can talk about how to do and not to do a Friday the 13th discussion. We had some good moments during yours.
Don't dedicate 3 months to it.
Yeah, that's not the way. You can't. Even if we double featured them for each discussion, I think that would have made it easier on everybody involved.
All right. Well.